Hi, it's Mike Thornton from Pro Tools Expert, and we're down at BVE, and we're back on the HHB stand with Jan from NTP. I never know whether to call it NTP or DAD.
I don't know either.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm just as confused as everybody else. But no, we prefer probably at the moment to use the DAD brand because that's what most people know about. And NTP is more the broadcast brand that we use. So.
Okay, so give us a rundown for people that haven't really perhaps been away and not really aware of the power of what this unit will do, and especially in the context of taking it steps further in terms of monitor control and all the rest of it.
Sure. I mean, you could say we DAD X32, as it's called, start off its life as being a high-end mic-free ADDA converter for music recording, music production, obviously classical music, but also a lot of pop and rock and so on. We took that further, and because we've gotten some good ideas about doing monitor controller, which we've then evolved over the last 4 years, doing everything from simple music production all the way up to full Dolby Atmos mixing stages. So it's really a box which is also a monitor controller, but different from the majority of monitor controllers because a lot of them will have a fixed number of IOs, so many AES IOs, so many analog ins, and can only do 5.1 or stereo or whatever. Our box can do, in theory, up to 19 MADIs. It can do, if I remember correctly, 72 AES IOs. It can do 48 analog channels, and it can do Dante/A67, or a combination of those. It even does SDI embedding, de-embedding. So it's really, you can design it with whatever connectivity you want it to do. And also, just as importantly, you design your monitor controller how you want it to work. And just to show you that, what the concept we have is, we create what we call a monitor profile.
So this is your DAD Man software, which essentially is the software that really drives this unit.
That's the software which drives it, so used to set it up, configure it, and also where you basically have a kind of application, you can call it, which is the monitor profile, where you can go in and define what we call a monitor group, and that can be, for example, your control room, and within your control room you have some sources, and these can be pretty much any format you want. As you can see, we can support anything from mono all the way up to 9.1.4. And we also have a format called multi, which is based up to 64 channels. And with the latest version now, we can even define custom immersive formats like the one we've done here, which is called Atmos One, where you can go and define how many side speakers you have, rear speakers, and so on. So that's your sources. And of course, you can define as many sources as you want and whatever format. You define which outputs you have. And in this case, I've done an Atmos output, a 5.1 output, a 2.1 output.
So these are just picking up, in this case, outputs, whatever particular outputs of whatever particular flavor.
Exactly. So in this case, I've done, for example, my Atmos output goes to a Dante output.
Makes sense, because you're going to want to talk to the...
to speaker
RMU
systems and whatever, yes, and we have a main output here which goes to analog outputs, and a 2.1 which goes to actually to a combination of analog and AES output. So you can even do those kinds of weird combinations. On top of that, we can do a fold down. So we can do, for example, 5.1 to stereo. So if you work in 5.1 but want to listen in stereo, you can do that. But more importantly, we can even do what we call a speaker match or fold up. So we can actually go from a 5.1 system to, for example, a 7.1, or in this case, we spread out across a full Atmos room. And finally, we have a dedicated meter output. So you can go in and say whatever you listen to is being copied digitally and sent out on a dedicated meter output. So that's how you can define all the functions you have in your control room. You can then do, for example, a Q output as well. And again, you have some sources which can be the same or it can be different sources. You can have different outputs and fold down. So we see customers using it, of course, from very simple solutions like control room, a couple of Q outputs. We have other big installations where you have a kind of small producer position workstation where he has a pair of headphone outputs and can do some work with his own computer. An editor who's doing some work on his computer with a pair of headphones. And all of them using that same monitor controller, getting access to the same sources, but can also, because we'll talk about capability, can interfere with the production and just listen in and talk to a talent and things like that. So it's really everything from being a very simple, straightforward programmable monitor controller to something which can be a multi-user solution if you want to do that, covering everything from mono to a full 64-channel Dolby Atmos. So it's really a very powerful solution which you can tailor to your requirements. It's not like you buy a box and it has this number of IOs, it's limited to 5.1. Well, if you work 5.1 today, and tomorrow you want to go to 7.1, just reprogram it. You need to have a MADI or an AS, you buy a card, plug it in, and you expand it to that. So it's really a full, flexible, design your own monitor controller system, basically.
Great. All right. Well, we'll be talking more about the rest of the monitor control system in 2 more videos. We're going to look at the Mon unit, the little remote control, and also the speaker processor card. So join us again. It's Mike Thornton from Pro Tools Expert at BVE in London.